so you kind of have a, you know, what's fairly typical in the technology world, and one of the kind of both hardest and also most rewarding challenges, which is you have sort of two sets of customers, right? Like you have, or what I sometimes like to call a two-sided market, right? Like, so you have the brands and you have the end users. You know, and I think typically, my view is in two-sided markets, there's typically one side that's much easier to get and one that's much harder.
Yeah.
You know, as an example, in the online advertising space, it's typically, you know, in most cases for ad networks, it's easier to get ad inventory than it is to get publishers inventory or something like that. And have you found, you know, that it sounds like you're having sort of an easier time with the brands? I mean, so the challenge, right, is you have to get both sides,
right,
and it's not valuable to the user until you have a critical mass on each side.
Yeah, I mean, that was like one of the big things is, yeah, we could have made the application fully targeted towards brands. Like everything that the brands were asking, they were asking for things like people can't add content to their codes, like read-only codes. They get to moderate all content. Like if somebody posts something bad on your barcode, they're allowed to just erase it. And so I believe that it was paramount to protect the user first, and then kind of shift the brand in there, which makes for some unhappy brands. But in the end, I rather have kind of an active user base that is getting a real utility out of the application.
Do you think it's sustainable though? Like Yelp, for example, has lots of, you know, has a very similar problem, right? So they're trying to rate these things and be sort of on the user side, but then they also ultimately are getting paid by the merchants.
And I'm sure that some, there
you know,
definitely
you hear
been
these
some
complaints,
powerful merchants that have been like, if you don't erase this, then we're just going to go away, and they're like, okay, we'll do it and we won't tell anyone.
So thus far though, you've been able to sort of maintain the integrity of, like, someone can say like Coca-Cola sucks or whatever, and and it'll be like listed there, or
exactly. So I mean, what we're trying to do is like give tools that the brand can kind of respond, kind of like,
I see.
I guess eBay was an example of that I.
So they can say, Bill, I hear you that you think Coca-Cola sucks, but here's why it doesn't suck.
Exactly.
Or something.
So they can respond, and they, you know, there's kind of a conversation that happens there the same way like eBay feedback. If you say I never got the shipment, then the person can reply and say like, well, actually here's the tracking number and this and that, and it was sent to you. So there's kind of that.
I always feel like that's better. Like I don't know, from what it's worth, like on my blog, if someone says I suck, I let them say I suck, and then I try to respond to it. I'd rather address it. I assume for every person that says that, there's 1,000 who think it and don't say it, and you might as well take it head on, right? Like, I don't know.
And there's like that rule on the internet, right? Where if you try and bury something and censor it, it's only going to try and only going to make it come back up.
The Barbara Streisand effect, is that what it is? So that's right. So when she like sued somebody, and then it just made the whole thing much bigger.
Yeah. And now the effect is actually named after her, which is
I know. So
don't have effects named after you.
That's probably a good rule. So
so I'm just curious, like what has been your experience as far as you know, you've had several kind of companies going after both. Like, do you put one paramount to the other, or do you try and like manage that balance? Yeah,
so we had this problem. My last company was called SiteAdvisor, which was a security company, and we kind of got acquired before we really had to hit that point. But I think ultimately, you know, I think like a lot of online businesses, if you think about Google and eBay, for example, really they're paid by the websites, not by the end users, right? So like in Google, case of advertisers, and eBay, in the case of, you know, the majority of their activity is from sort of professional sellers. And in our case, we were rating websites as whether they're good or bad, and the question was, how can you know, it's sort of hard to charge users for this type of product. The websites would be the natural place to charge, but how do you do that in a way that you don't compromise the integrity? Like what ended up happening is like companies like OpenDNS pioneered interesting ways that were sort of, you know, like for example, they monetized the 404s. So like, you know, if you know, they basically provide a search results or something like that. And actually, when I was, we got acquired by McAfee. When I was there, we acquired a company called HackerSafe, which the idea there was they do sort of a very objective vulnerability scanning of a website. And the idea there is you can charge the website, but you charge them for a very well-defined, specific, you know, technical service that in no way affects the rating. So you sort of think of it as you're maintaining the integrity of the core product, but you're layering on services that you can charge the brand for. Was that then kind of spit back to users to say like there's this integrity in place to kind of give? Yeah, we were very clear about that, and it was very important as part of the brand, I think. But I think that's one solution to this, is sort of that you keep the core integrity of the product, you build these relationships between the brand and the consumer, and then you start monetizing off of add-on products which don't have that conflict, which might be directly selling. So then you go to the brand and you say, and by the way, I can, manage your entire offline market, I don't know what, like your iPhone marketing, you tell me what it is, or your, your offline social media strategy, and so you're monetizing off services that don't have that conflict, as an example. I think you've seen a lot of companies do that.